Humanity had always looked to the stars with wonder, but nothing could have prepared them for what appeared in the sky one morning. It was not a comet or a strange planet, nor any of the satellites that orbited Earth. It was alive, or at least, it moved with a purpose so precise and terrifying that the people below felt an instinctive chill in their bones. Slowly, impossibly, a massive ship descended, casting a shadow over entire cities. Its surface shimmered like liquid metal, smooth and reflective, yet it was structured with angles and curves that seemed to defy known physics. This was no ordinary spacecraft. It was the vessel of a being whose existence alone could bend entire worlds to its will, the alien queen. In the streets, people froze. Cars came to a standstill. Phones recorded the unimaginable, but no footage could capture the full weight of awe and fear. Governments scrambled to respond, launching jets that barely reached the edges of the ship, which hovered as if unconcerned by Earth's defenses. Scientists in their labs, astronomers at their observatories, and children in their classrooms watched the same sky, holding their breaths. The alien queen did not speak at first. She let the humans stew in their fear, and then, without warning, her voice filled the minds of millions. It was not loud, not boisterous, but somehow all-encompassing, echoing inside every thought as clearly as if someone stood next to them and whispered. "Humans of Earth," she said, and the words made hearts stop. "Your planet has resources that my world desperately needs. Will you surrender them, or will you watch as I take them by force?" Emergency sessions were convened in the United Nations. Military generals argued with political leaders, and scientists analyzed the readings coming from the Queen's ship. The words resources and force were terrifyingly vague. Was she speaking of minerals, water, or something more profound? And if she attacked, could humanity survive even a day against her? Amid the panic, one man remained calm. General Marcus Venn, a career strategist and decorated military officer, had seen chaos before, but nothing like this. He did not shrink in fear, nor did he panic. Standing before a giant screen that transmitted the Queen's image, Marcus studied her carefully. She was massive, taller than the tallest human, with skin that shifted colors like molten metal and eyes that glowed with intelligence beyond comprehension. Her presence was commanding, but Marcus did not flinch. The Queen's gaze seemed to pass through the screen and into him, curious now. "You are the first to meet my eyes without trembling," she said. Her voice was both a statement and a question. Marcus swallowed and straightened his shoulders. "We do not tremble," he replied. "Humans may fear, but we do not give up. We survive, we fight. That is what makes us strong." The Queen had never encountered a species like this, one willing to meet her challenge without begging or pleading. The Queen raised one of her long, graceful hands, and the sky seemed to bend around it. "Your courage is amusing," she said, "and your audacity is unexpected. Most worlds would surrender at the mere sight of me. Yet you, a single man, speak as if your species is equal to mine." None had resisted her so boldly, none had offered words instead of submission. She studied Marcus, curious, trying to measure the limits of this fragile species that somehow radiated courage. "Your world has value," she said finally. "I offer you a choice. Sacrifice it to sustain mine, and I will leave you untouched. Refuse, and I will consume it in days." "What say you, human?" "There is another way. We solve problems with creativity, cooperation, and determination. We can work together to save lives. Your world may be dying, but we can find a solution that does not demand the annihilation of ours." "You call it strategy. Tell me, human, what makes you think you could succeed where all others fail?" "You may have power over the physical world, but humans have power in ways you cannot measure. That is why we endure." For the first time in her long life, she hesitated. In the command centers of Earth, scientists and generals watched Marcus's interaction unfold in real time. They were inspired. For the first time, the fear that had gripped humanity began to shift into hope. Perhaps, just perhaps, they were not entirely helpless. The Queen observed Marcus closely. "Your words are compelling, human," she said. "And yet words alone will not save your world. You will need more than courage. You will need action. Let me show you something. Watch and learn and see if your species truly deserves survival." They depicted the alien world of the Queen, an ecosystem failing, cities crumbling under the weight of resource depletion, and millions of her species suffering in silence. Marcus watched, not just the devastation, but the intelligence behind her strategy. The Queen was not cruel without reason. Her world truly needed help, and yet she demanded sacrifice from Earth instead. Marcus swallowed, absorbing the weight of the revelation. He could see why she assumed humans would surrender. They were not known across the galaxy. She could not know them personally. She assumed fear would outweigh ingenuity and force would outweigh strategy. But she had underestimated one thing, the human spirit. The survival of one species should not demand the destruction of another, Marcus said quietly yet firmly. There is always a way to protect both. That is what we do. That is what makes us human. Most would plead, most would beg, most would surrender. And yet you, a single human, speak of protection, ingenuity, and hope. It is refreshing. That is what defines us. The Queen's ship hovered above, immense and brilliant, yet now there was something new in her perception, a respect, tentative but growing, for the species she had assumed would kneel. She had underestimated the unpredictable, adaptive, and resilient nature of humanity. "Very well, human," she said finally, almost reluctantly. "We will see if your species is as clever as it claims. You have caught my attention, but do not mistake curiosity for leniency. Your world is fragile and my patience is not infinite." This human, this General Marcus Venn, had answered her in a way no other species had. And for the first time in centuries, she wondered if she had misjudged them all. Below, across the cities of Earth, life continued, but with a new sense of purpose. Humans were united not just by fear, but by the realization that they were more than just prey in the galaxy. They were a species capable of facing the impossible, of standing against unimaginable power, and of daring to hope when hope seemed foolish. Above, the Queen remained, studying, calculating, and wondering. One question still lingered in her mind, and she would return to it. "Would you sacrifice your world for mine?" And the answer she had received, so calm, so unwavering, so human, would haunt her thoughts for a long time. Marcus looked up at the massive ship in the sky, feeling the weight of the challenge, yet undaunted. "We will protect our home," he said softly, "but we will not destroy yours." There is another way. There always is. Some leaders argued that surrendering to the alien queen was the only way to save billions of lives. Others refused to even consider it, insisting that humanity could find a solution. Fear, hope, and stubborn determination swirled together like storm clouds over the planet. In the midst of this chaos, General Marcus Venn remained a calm center. He moved between military command centers, research facilities, and emergency meeting rooms with a steady presence that reassured both leaders and civilians. To him, panic was a luxury humanity could not afford. There was work to be done. Every human alive was now part of the same battle, not with alien weapons, but with intelligence, cooperation, and resilience. Marcus spent long hours in discussions with scientists. Dr. Lena Said, a brilliant astrophysicist, and Dr. Hiro Tanaka, a mechanical engineer, worked tirelessly to understand the alien ship systems. Every scan and reading they gathered showed one undeniable truth: the Queen's technology far surpassed anything humans had ever seen. Her ship was alive in some ways, responding to the environment, adjusting shields, and even repairing itself. Conventional weapons were useless. "Even our most advanced missiles won't touch her," Dr. Tanaka said during a briefing. "The ship can adapt to any threat we throw at it. We're outmatched in every conventional sense." "Then we fight differently," he said. "We fight with our brains, our unpredictability, and our ability to adapt in real time. She may be powerful, but she has never faced humans who think differently than she expects." Instead, she saw humans working together, sharing knowledge, innovating, and refusing to bow. It was unusual, and it intrigued her. She reached out again to Marcus, this time through a mental link, so she could communicate directly without the delay of speeches broadcasted worldwide. "You persist, human," she said. Her voice echoed in Marcus's mind, smooth and commanding. "Why?" "Your species is fragile. You do not have the strength of armies, nor the power of my technology. You will fail. That is strength, Queen, and you cannot destroy it. We can surprise, improvise, and endure. You may have power over matter, but we have power over ideas, and that cannot be measured by your instruments." She projected visions into his mind, visions of her dying world with its cities crumbling, rivers running dry, and entire populations struggling to survive. She showed him the suffering of her people, their fear, and their desperation. Marcus absorbed everything without flinching. He had seen destruction before on battlefields across Earth, and yet this was different. Still, he remained steady, thinking quickly. "Your people suffer," he said softly, "but taking our world does not solve the problem. It creates more suffering. There is another way. We can help you without giving up what we have built here." Her kind believed that power was the answer, and that those without it must comply or perish. Yet here was a human speaking of cooperation and innovation, not submission or fear. It was unusual. Over the next week, Marcus and his team worked feverishly. Engineers, pilots, scientists, and strategists collaborated as never before. Even citizens contributed, offering ideas, skills, and support. Humanity had never faced a threat like this, yet the response was unified. Every person, from the highest-ranking officer to a child coding a simulation at home, felt the weight of the challenge and the spark of determination. Dr. Lena Said had an idea that could change the course of the conflict. "If we can access one of the smaller drones the Queen uses for reconnaissance," she explained, "we could learn how her technology thinks. Her AI, her shields, they adapt. But if we can predict one pattern, we might be able to exploit it." Humanity survives by understanding its enemies better than they understand us. When they analyzed the technology, they discovered something incredible. The alien systems were advanced, yes, but rigid in their logic. They could adapt quickly to external threats, but they relied on patterns that could be studied, predicted, and exploited. Humanity could not match raw power, but they could outthink it. Marcus gathered the team to discuss the next step. "We now have the knowledge to fight smarter," he said. "We cannot win by destroying her ship, but we can survive, protect our world, and find a solution that saves lives. That is our strength." Marcus and his team did not act out of fear, but out of hope, creativity, and persistence. This was unusual, even remarkable. In one private communication, the Queen confronted Marcus directly again. "You speak of hope and ingenuity," she said, her voice echoing in his mind. "But what of sacrifice? What will you give to save your species? Most worlds offer everything when faced with extinction." "You resist, why?" No species had ever answered her this way. She had encountered civilizations willing to die quietly, willing to surrender without hope, or willing to fight without thinking. Humanity was different. She could see it now. Their strength was not in weapons or numbers, but in their courage, ingenuity, and willingness to act despite fear. Meanwhile, humans continued to organize. Cities built shelters and defenses. Scientists and engineers worked together to modify existing technology. Even ordinary citizens found ways to contribute. Teachers explained the situation to children not to frighten them, but to inspire them to think creatively. Workers built systems that could help predict alien movements. Humanity's collective intelligence became a shield stronger than any weapon. One night, Marcus stood on a cliff overlooking a city. The Queen's ship hovered above, casting a massive shadow over the streets. He could see the lights of the city reflected on its surface, and he felt the weight of responsibility pressing on his shoulders. Every life on Earth depended on the decisions they made now. He closed his eyes and imagined the future, not a future of surrender or fear, but one where humans survived and thrived. "We cannot control everything," he said quietly to himself, "but we can control how we respond. That is enough." She had asked one question repeatedly in her mind. "Would you sacrifice your world for mine?" She had received answers before, but never like this. Marcus's response was not a simple yes or no. It was a refusal to surrender, combined with a willingness to act for the greater good without losing oneself. That was shocking. As days turned into a week, skirmishes began. Small probes from the Queen's ship tested Earth's defenses, but humans countered with strategy, improvisation, and intelligence. Every encounter taught them more about the alien technology, and every success, no matter how small, built confidence. Humanity was proving that courage and creativity could compete with power and fear. One evening, Marcus received a direct mental communication from the Queen again. "You persist," she said, a hint of admiration in her voice. "You do not surrender, yet you offer solutions. Why?" "That is who we are. You cannot destroy that, no matter how powerful you are." They were not just prey or subjects. They were a species with potential, a species that could surprise even the most advanced civilizations. And in that realization, the first seeds of respect began to grow. Marcus, meanwhile, returned to his team determined. They had a long road ahead, but humanity had already shown its strength. Fear was no longer the driver, determination was. They would face the Queen's challenges, yes, but they would do so on their terms, using what made them human: courage, ingenuity, and the will to survive without surrendering who they were. The first contact had ended, but the story was far from over. Earth had a chance, not just to survive, but to show the galaxy the true meaning of humanity. The Queen's shadow still hung over Earth, but humanity refused to cower beneath it. Every day, scientists, engineers, and strategists worked together, pushing the limits of human imagination. They were not armed with alien-grade technology, but with something equally powerful: the ability to adapt, to learn quickly, and to act unpredictably. Marcus knew that raw force would not win this battle. Brains and courage were humanity's only weapons against an opponent who could destroy continents with a thought. The first small skirmishes began with probes. The Queen sent sleek, swift ships to test Earth's defenses, moving faster than any jet or missile. In the initial encounters, humans lost several cities, defenses almost immediately. It was a stark reminder of the Queen's power. Yet instead of despair, each failure became a lesson. "We cannot meet her on the battlefield with brute force," Marcus said, standing in the war room with his team of engineers and military commanders. "But we can outthink her. Every move she makes is predictable if we study the pattern. She adapts, yes, but adaptation is not instinct. It is logic. Logic can be studied. Logic can be exploited. We've already learned from the first captured drone. Its programming repeats certain responses. If we can manipulate the triggers, we can create traps. She may be strong, but she is not infallible. We will survive because we think, because we adapt, and because we refuse to be predictable." Engineers began modifying satellites into autonomous drones capable of luring the alien scouts into traps. Civilians with technical skills contributed simulations to predict alien movements. Every department, from agriculture to transportation, became part of the larger defense effort. Meanwhile, the Queen observed the activity from above. She had seen civilizations resist her before, but none had organized so quickly, so cleverly, and so effectively. She had assumed fear would drive humans to surrender or chaos would scatter them. Yet here they were, united in thought, resilient in spirit, and determined in action. She found herself both intrigued and frustrated. Marcus oversaw the first test. Small autonomous drones were launched to mimic human settlements, broadcasting false energy signatures to attract the alien scouts. The first few probes approached cautiously, scanning, analyzing, and preparing to strike. But when they arrived at the targeted zones, the drones triggered controlled electromagnetic pulses. The alien scouts faltered, confused by the interference, and one by one were captured by human-made nets deployed from nearby satellites. When the operation succeeded, the room erupted in quiet celebration. Marcus allowed a small smile. It was not a victory, not yet, but it was proof. Humans could think differently, act unpredictably, and succeed where brute force alone would fail. The Queen's scouts were not invincible, they were vulnerable to cleverness. The Queen, watching from above, sent a mental probe to Marcus. "You have disrupted my forces," she said. "Your species is resourceful, but these are small victories. They will not save you. Your world is fragile. Do not mistake cleverness for strength." "Strength is not just in power," he said. "It is in creativity, endurance, and courage. You may have power over matter, but humans have power over ideas. That is what makes us survive, and that is what will save us now." There was something unique in humans, something she could not quantify. Emboldened by their success with the scouts, Marcus and his team escalated their plan. They would not only defend, they would challenge the Queen's assumptions. Humans began creating camouflage grids, using energy reflections to make cities appear empty from above. They set traps in the skies with decoy signals, leading alien probes into controlled zones where they could be neutralized. Every move was calculated but unpredictable. The Queen's fleet began to notice patterns, but could not fully anticipate the improvisation of human tactics. Humans were thinking not just in terms of survival, but in terms of learning and exploiting every mistake the alien forces made. One night, Marcus convened a special meeting. The Queen's ship hung above the city, massive and silent like a watchful predator. "We've tested her responses," he said. "We've learned her patterns, but the real challenge is her strike fleet. They are faster, stronger, and more intelligent than the probes. If they attack directly, we will lose unless we can think faster than they do. If we guide them correctly, we can trap her forces without directly confronting them." Engineers designed decoy cities that could emit energy signatures similar to real ones. Pilots trained to navigate unpredictable paths through the skies. Scientists created algorithms that could adapt to alien movements faster than the Queen could predict. Humanity had become a collective organism, a living network of thought, each mind contributing to a single goal: survival and resistance. The first major engagement came unexpectedly. The Queen's strike fleet descended faster than anticipated, aiming directly for one of the major cities. Humanity's defenses activated automatically, with drones, decoy signals, and electromagnetic pulses working in perfect coordination. The alien ships faltered at the sudden chaos, misled by false readings and disrupted by targeted interference. One by one, several of the strike ships were trapped in nets deployed from satellites. The humans had predicted their moves accurately, using ingenuity to outthink superior technology. Marcus observed the battle from the command center. His heart pounded, but his mind remained calm. He knew this was only the beginning. Humans had struck the first blow, not with firepower, but with intelligence, adaptability, and courage. It was a clear message. Humanity could be challenged, but it could not be easily destroyed. The Queen watched the engagement with fascination. She had assumed humans would crumble under pressure, but instead they had turned the battle into a learning experience. Every action they took was unpredictable, yet coordinated. She had expected instinctive fear, but what she saw was deliberate strategy. For the first time, she reconsidered the assumption that power alone determined survival. After the engagement, Marcus addressed his team. "Today, we have not defeated her fleet, but we have proven something more important. We are not helpless. We are not predictable. We survive because we think, because we adapt, because we refuse to bow. This is only the beginning. Every human alive is now part of this effort, and together we will continue to defend our world. Do you truly believe that you can survive against me long-term?" Instead, she observed, analyzing the humans with a level of attention she had never given any other species. She saw their courage, their ability to coordinate, their willingness to risk themselves for others. She saw potential where she had expected only fragility. Over the next days, skirmishes continued. Humans learned from every encounter, improving their strategies. Civilians contributed ideas, engineers designed new defenses, and pilots executed maneuvers that even the Queen did not anticipate. Humanity had turned the fight into an ongoing demonstration of ingenuity. Marcus knew that this was only the first stage of a much longer challenge. The Queen's forces were vast, and her technology was formidable. But humans had discovered something critical. They could survive against odds that seemed impossible. Every day, every success, no matter how small, built confidence and unity across the planet. By the end of the week, humanity had achieved something extraordinary. They had not destroyed the Queen's fleet, nor had they defeated her ship. But they had demonstrated that they could act unpredictably, coordinate flawlessly, and outthink a far superior opponent. Humanity had shown its first true strength, that brains, courage, and cooperation could challenge even the most advanced forces in the galaxy. The Queen, observing all this, began to reconsider her initial assumptions. Humanity was not simply another species to dominate. They were clever, adaptable, and resilient in ways she had never encountered. She realized that if she underestimated them again, she could face consequences she had never imagined. Marcus, standing once more on a cliff overlooking the city, felt a cautious hope. Humanity had survived its first test and had learned much about the Queen's tactics, but he knew the real battle had only just begun. The world was united, clever, and determined, and he was proud of every single person contributing to the effort. Humanity had turned fear into action, chaos into strategy, and survival into a demonstration of their ingenuity. Above, the Queen's ship shimmered in the fading light of the day. For the first time, she wondered if humanity was worth more than she had ever imagined. And deep down, she knew the coming days would test both sides in ways no one could yet predict. But one thing was certain: humanity was no longer just a planet to conquer. It was a species to respect, challenge, and perhaps, one day, even admire. The days that followed were tense, yet charged with a sense of purpose. Humanity had survived the first encounters with the Queen's fleet, and that small victory spread hope across the globe. Cities that had once been paralyzed by fear now moved with determination. People worked tirelessly, not for glory or reward, but because survival demanded ingenuity and cooperation. Every human, from the youngest student to the oldest engineer, felt the weight of the challenge and the importance of their contribution. Marcus moved tirelessly between command centers, war rooms, and research labs. He had become a symbol of calm and resilience, someone who inspired confidence simply by being present. But he knew that humanity's real strength lay not in a single leader, but in the collective effort of billions of minds working together. The Queen had underestimated this. She had assumed fear would fracture humanity, but instead, Their courage and creativity had united them. The Queen observed these developments closely. Her massive ship hovered above the Earth, a constant reminder of her presence. At first, she had been frustrated by humanity's unpredictable responses. But now, she found herself fascinated. Humans were unlike any species she had encountered. They adapted, they learned, they cooperated in ways that defied her expectations. They were not merely surviving, they were thriving under pressure, and they were doing so in ways that challenged her assumptions about power and dominance. She decided to confront Marcus again, this time personally. A communication channel opened directly in his mind, bypassing screens and broadcasts. "You persist, human," she said, her voice echoing in his thoughts. "I have observed your species, and I admit, you are more remarkable than I anticipated. Yet I still do not understand. Why do you continue to resist when you know the outcome could be catastrophic? Power does not define us. Humanity survives because we act, think, and adapt. That is why we continue. That is why we resist." And yet here was humanity, facing her power with courage, ingenuity, and determination. "You are unusual," she admitted finally. "Most would surrender, most would fight blindly, most would despair. But you inspire both caution and curiosity. And it is what makes us dangerous when underestimated." Her first move was subtle but calculated. She deployed a squadron of ships, far more advanced than the scouts and strike forces humanity had faced before. These ships were equipped with adaptive shields and weapons capable of analyzing human tactics in real time. The Queen expected that humans would struggle, that fear would force mistakes, and that chaos would lead to surrender. But Marcus had anticipated escalation. Humanity's engineers had been studying alien patterns and developing countermeasures. They had learned from every previous encounter, improving defenses, creating decoys, and coordinating responses with increasing sophistication. Humans were learning faster than the Queen had predicted. When the advanced squadron descended, humanity's defenses were ready. Drones emitted false energy signatures, creating illusions of empty cities and abandoned facilities. Electromagnetic pulses disrupted alien sensors, and decoy signals lured the ships into carefully prepared traps. Humans had transformed the battlefield into a living strategy where every move was calculated yet flexible. The engagement was fierce. The Queen's forces adapted quickly, but humans adapted faster. Every move by the alien ships was met with a creative response, every advance countered by clever misdirection. The Queen watched in growing fascination. Humanity's unpredictability was unlike anything she had encountered. They did not fight with brute strength alone, they fought with intelligence, imagination, and determination. For the first time, the Queen began to respect them. She realized that power alone did not define a species. Intelligence, adaptability, and courage could turn the tide even against superior technology. Humans were not merely surviving, they were challenging her assumptions, and that was remarkable. Marcus observed the battle from the command center. He saw the Queen's ships faltering against carefully orchestrated traps, their systems struggling to adapt to human ingenuity. He knew that these encounters were more than mere survival exercises. They were proof that humanity could stand against impossible odds. After the engagement, Marcus convened his team. "We have done well," he said, "but this is only the beginning. The Queen is testing us, probing our limits. Every action we take now shapes our future. We must continue to innovate, to adapt, and to show that humanity cannot be easily defeated. If we continue to study and anticipate, we can gain the upper hand, not through strength, but through intelligence and coordination. That is humanity's advantage, and we will use it." Humanity's ingenuity was a force she had not fully anticipated. To test them further, she sent envoys to communicate directly with Marcus. She did not attack this time, but observed, learning from every decision he made. She studied human history, their strategies in previous wars, their ability to unite under pressure. She began to understand that humanity's strength was not in technology or numbers, but in their courage, adaptability, and willingness to act when the outcome was uncertain. Marcus, aware of the Queen's observations, continued to inspire his team. "We are not just fighting for survival," he said. "We are proving that humanity can face the impossible and find solutions. Every day, every decision, every action shapes our future. We must continue to innovate, to cooperate, and to show that our strength is not just in power, but in our ability to think and act as one." Civilians contributed ideas, skills, and labor, transforming the planet into a unified force capable of responding to any challenge. The Queen, observing these developments, began to see humans in a new light. She realized that they were not merely a species to conquer, they were a species to respect. Their courage, intelligence, and adaptability made them worthy of attention, even admiration. She began to question her initial assumptions about power and dominance. Marcus, standing once again on a cliff overlooking a city, felt a sense of cautious hope. Humanity had survived the first tests, learned from each encounter, and demonstrated its ability to innovate and adapt. But he knew the true challenge was yet to come. The Queen's forces were vast, her technology formidable, and her understanding of human behavior incomplete. The days ahead would test both sides in ways they could not yet imagine. Yet one thing was clear: humanity was no longer merely a planet to conquer. It was a species to be respected, a species capable of facing unimaginable odds and emerging stronger. And Marcus knew that as long as humans continued to innovate, cooperate, and act with courage, they could survive, and perhaps even thrive in the shadow of the alien Queen. The Queen's voice came to him one final time that day, calm but tinged with curiosity. "You are remarkable, human. I have underestimated your species. You survive not because of strength alone, but because of your courage, your ingenuity, and your willingness to act. Perhaps there is more to humans than I realized. That is our strength, and it cannot be destroyed by force alone." Their ingenuity, courage, and determination made them a species unlike any other in the galaxy. Marcus returned to his team determined. Humanity had proven its strength, but the true challenge was still ahead. The Queen would not relent, and her curiosity would lead her to test them further. But for the first time, humans were not just surviving. They were demonstrating their potential, their unity, and their ability to stand against even the most advanced forces in the galaxy. Above, the Queen's ship shimmered in the fading light of the day. She observed humanity with a mixture of fascination and respect. They had survived, adapted, and innovated in ways she had never expected. She realized that if she underestimated them again, she could face consequences she had not anticipated. And deep down, she knew that the coming days would test both sides in ways no one could yet predict. Humanity was no longer just a planet to conquer. It was a species to respect, challenge, and perhaps even admire. Marcus looked out over the city, feeling the weight of responsibility yet also a quiet pride. Humanity had faced the impossible and had not faltered. They had acted with courage, creativity, and determination. The next stage of the conflict would be harder, but they were ready. And that readiness, that unity, that ingenuity was something no force in the galaxy could easily defeat. The sun had barely risen when the Queen's fleet appeared above Earth once again. Unlike previous encounters, this was not a probing attack or a test. The ships were larger, more coordinated, and bristling with advanced weapons. The Queen herself hovered in her massive flagship above the atmosphere, her glowing eyes focused intently on the planet below. Humanity's defenses were prepared, but the stakes had never been higher. This was no longer a test of ingenuity alone. It was a challenge that would decide the future of two worlds. General Marcus Venn stood in the Central Command Center, surrounded by scientists, engineers, and military officers. Every display in the room showed the alien ships descending, calculating trajectories, and activating shields and weapon systems. Marcus did not flinch. He had trained for moments like this his entire life, and he had learned from the previous engagements that fear would not serve him, only clarity and determination. "Today, we face the full force of the Queen," Marcus said firmly. "We have survived her tests, learned from them, and prepared for this moment. We do not have her raw power, but we have what she cannot anticipate: creativity, courage, and unity. Every human alive is part of this effort. Every mind, every skill, every decision matters. We will survive. We will protect our home. And we will prove that humanity cannot be broken." What distinguished this moment was the understanding that they were not just defending their planet. They were defending their freedom, their values, and the very essence of what it meant to be human. Outside, the alien fleet moved with precision, preparing for a coordinated strike. Massive energy cannons charged, and their weapons began to hum ominously. But humanity's defenses were ready. Satellites, drones, and decoy cities activated in perfect synchrony. Electromagnetic pulses disrupted alien targeting systems, while human pilots executed unpredictable maneuvers designed to confuse the Queen's calculations. The battle had begun. The first strikes came, aimed at major cities, but humans anticipated them. Marcus watched as drones diverted the alien weapons, causing several of the enemy ships to misfire or collide with their own defensive grids. Civilians cheered from below, not in a careless celebration, but as a shared recognition of humanity's resilience. Each success built confidence, each maneuver demonstrated intelligence and cooperation, and every human alive played a role. The Queen's voice entered Marcus's mind, calm but tinged with curiosity. "You continue to survive, human. Your species is unlike any I have encountered. But survival alone does not prove victory. What is your strategy? How do you hope to overcome a fleet far superior to yours?" "We exploit patterns, we innovate, and we adapt faster than you expect. We do not fight with power alone. We fight with intelligence, creativity, and unity. That is what humanity does, and that is why we endure." Marcus had proven not just courage, but leadership and vision. For the first time, she questioned her assumptions about what it meant to be strong. The battle escalated. Alien ships advanced, adapting to human tactics, recalculating in real time. They fired concentrated energy blasts that obliterated decoy cities and targeted defenses. Humanity countered, not with direct force but with improvisation. Engineers modified drones mid-flight, redirecting them to intercept attacks. Pilots executed maneuvers the aliens had never seen, confusing their targeting systems. Scientists on the ground calculated probabilities faster than the Queen's AI could predict. Amid the chaos, Marcus identified a crucial opportunity. A formation of alien ships had exposed a vulnerability in their communication network while adjusting to human misdirection. "This is it," he said to his team. "We can exploit this weakness to neutralize the fleet without engaging directly. Focus all drones, all satellites, all signals on this zone. Precision and timing are everything." Drones emitted controlled energy pulses, satellites disrupted alien communications, and human pilots guided the alien ships into traps. One by one, the ships faltered, their systems overloaded by a combination of human ingenuity and relentless coordination. The Queen watched in disbelief. This was not brute force. This was intelligence, creativity, and adaptability in action. Marcus remained calm, guiding the operation with steady hands and clear orders. "Remember," he said, "we do not destroy for revenge. We neutralize for survival. Every action is calculated, every decision matters. Trust your training, trust each other, and trust that human ingenuity will prevail." Ships were trapped in fields that disrupted their systems, their weapons disabled without catastrophic destruction. The remaining vessels retreated under the Queen's command. Humanity had survived, and they had done so not through sheer force, but through intelligence, creativity, and courage. The Queen, observing the outcome, projected herself into Marcus's mind once again. "I underestimated your species, human," she said. "You have not only survived my forces, but have outthought them. Your courage and ingenuity are remarkable. You are unlike any civilization I have encountered. Why do you value your world so fiercely?" "We value life, freedom, and what we create together. That is what makes us human. We do not surrender what is ours, but we find a way to help when we can. That is our strength, and it cannot be taken by force alone." Instead, she had witnessed strategy, courage, and moral purpose intertwined with action. Humanity had proven that survival was not merely a matter of power. It was a matter of intellect, unity, and unyielding determination. For the first time, she asked the question that had haunted her thoughts since their first encounter. "Would you sacrifice your world to save mine?" Every species she had encountered had either surrendered, fought blindly, or perished. Humans were different. They faced annihilation with intelligence, courage, and a sense of moral purpose. They valued life and freedom, and they refused to be broken. Over the next days, the Queen withdrew her fleet, observing humanity from a distance. She did not leave in anger, but in contemplation. She had learned that force alone could not dominate humans. They had taught her something she had never expected, that true strength was not in destruction, but in courage, intelligence, and resilience. Marcus continued to guide humanity's recovery and preparation. Cities rebuilt defenses, scientists refined technology, and civilians contributed wherever possible. Humanity had survived not by chance, but by embracing its core strengths: ingenuity, courage, and unity. The Queen, watching from her flagship, reflected on the encounter. She had come to demand surrender, yet she found respect instead. Humans had proven that survival was more than power. It was creativity, determination, and moral courage. She realized that the species she had intended to conquer had, in fact, conquered her expectations. Marcus stood on a cliff overlooking the city one evening, the Queen's ship a distant shadow above. He felt a quiet pride not in victory, but in what humanity had shown the galaxy. They had faced annihilation and had not faltered. They had acted with courage, intelligence, and unity. Humanity had survived not by force alone, but by being true to what made them human. The Queen's voice entered his mind one final time. "You have surprised me, human. I expected submission or fear. Instead, I witnessed courage, ingenuity, and moral strength. Your species is remarkable. I will depart for now, but I will not forget what I have seen. You have taught me that strength is not always measured in power, but in action, thought, and perseverance. That is who we are." Marcus looked across the city, watching the lights of millions of homes and workplaces. Each person had contributed in their own way, each action a part of the larger effort that had saved their world. Humanity had faced the impossible and had emerged stronger, united, and proud. The Queen would return, Marcus knew, but now she would return with respect and caution. She had seen the true measure of humanity, not in weapons, not in numbers, but in their courage, ingenuity, and unwavering determination. She had been challenged in ways no other species had ever managed, and she would not forget it. Above, the stars stretched endlessly, silent witnesses to the first true encounter between humanity and the alien Queen. Below, humans moved with purpose, rebuilding, preparing, and celebrating what they had achieved. They had faced the impossible and had not faltered. They had survived not by yielding, but by being exactly who they were, humans. And in that victory, quiet yet profound, humanity proved the truth that would echo through the galaxy. Courage, creativity, and determination could overcome even the greatest power, and the human spirit could never be underestimated. The world had survived, and humanity had grown stronger, not because of weapons or numbers, but because of what made them human. And for the first time, the Queen understood that her expectations had been entirely wrong. Humanity was not a species to conquer. Humanity was a species to respect, admire, and perhaps one day to trust. Marcus turned from the view, satisfied but aware of the challenges that still lay ahead. Humanity had survived, and it had survived on its own terms. That was the greatest victory of all.